Hey, you're here with Dr. Jodi, and this is season 2 of Anxiety. I am so done with you. This podcast is a teen and young adult guide to ditching toxic stress and hardwiring your brain for happiness. If you're new here, grab a copy of my book, Anxiety, I'm So Done With You, because this series is following section by section through the book, going a little bit deeper, giving more examples, and telling more stories. Season 2, which follows along with Chapter 2, is going through the lies that anxiety, depression, and negative thinking tell you to get you to believe them. Once you know what they are, you can see them coming a mile away and call them out. That way they can no longer sucker punch you with their toxicity. I appreciate you for listening, subscribing, and leaving me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If I've helped you at all, spread the word about this book and this podcast series. Mental health problems are invisible, so you never know who is struggling around you, and you sharing can make a huge difference in their lives. Welcome to this episode. We're talking about Chapter 2, lie number 5. You shouldn't have to do it. Before we start, I wanted to remind you that I go live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern on YouTube and Facebook. If you ever have any questions for me and would like to hang out with me virtually, come on over there. You can also find me on TikTok at Dr. Jodi, DoctorJodi. In this episode, we expose a lie that anxiety frequently uses in this modern culture. You shouldn't have to do anything that you don't want to do. This lie convinces you that your refusal to do anything that you don't want to do is you standing up for yourself and defending yourself. And while that might be true sometimes, anxiety makes you think this is a universal rule, and that belief actually hurts you. There are a ton of tasks that you are faced with each and every day that you do not want to do, like getting out of bed in the morning. But if you do it, you don't suffer the undesired consequences of being late. Some tasks you might do out of respect for who's asking, and some you might do to get something else that you do want, like shoveling snow so you could get out of the driveway. And then there's some tasks that have no point to them, and you could choose not to do them, like folding underwear. Who folds their underwear? You have a choice in every task that you engage in, though a lot of times it doesn't actually feel like that. It's because we're using words like, I have no choice, as in I have no choice whether to take the bus because I have no other way to get there. We use this disempowering language all the time, and our brain unconsciously hears this as powerlessness. With a bus, you can choose not to go, and many people would choose not to go somewhere if taking a bus was the only option. They are deciding that it's not worth the effort. The people who do choose the bus value the reasons for going enough to motivate them to do it. Or they take the bus all the time and they like it. Or at least they feel like it's easy and not much effort, so definitely worth it. Anxiety does not want you to think about the choice you have because then you feel empowered, and anxiety wants you to feel disempowered. Unfortunately, our society has enculturated in us this implicit belief that we are oppressed if we have to do anything that we don't want to do. It's that American entitlement to be happy. Y'all, we have a right to pursue happiness. That means generate happiness, not have happiness without effort. Unfortunately, anxiety takes advantage of this sense of entitlement, meaning that when you're faced with something that you don't want to do, you feel a sharp resistance to it. And then when humans feel that resistance, they have to make sense of it and give meaning to it. This implicit belief influences us to give it the meaning that we shouldn't have to do it. Remember, implicit beliefs and biases are there and they totally affect us, even when they're not fully in our consciousness. Cognitively, though, thinking that we're oppressed if we have to do anything we don't want to do doesn't even make sense. But the feeling of resistance, coupled with what the monkey says that resistant feeling means, immobilizes us and has us defending our honor and autonomy when often that makes us sabotage ourselves with the consequences of not doing it. Again, everything is a choice. Some things do not feel like a choice because the consequence of not doing them is undesirable, or the consequence of doing them is very desirable. There are tons of things that you have to do but don't want to do, like chores or homework, or sitting through something boring, or carrying something for someone, or watching your little sibling. In the big picture, the outcome of those tasks would benefit you in the end, or benefit someone you love in the end, even if it's not immediate. If you're accustomed to doing things that you don't want to do, it will make it easier. If you're not, it's harder, so much harder. When my kids were growing up and they were regularly doing chores, they complained a lot less. But whenever they were busy at school with something like sports or a midterm, I'd give them a break from helping me. But later, when I asked them to start helping again, they showed so much resistance by fighting or complaining or gaslighting me about it. I was starting to regret my kindness for giving them a break and wondering if I was really helping them at all. See, resistance doesn't feel good to the person who feels it. Resistance below the surface makes you feel like something's unjust, affecting your sense of powerlessness, worthlessness, and feelings of out of control. Remember those? They affect your mental health, and you start wondering why you feel so tired and unmotivated all of the time. The monkey starts searching for the problem, and you just feel like something is wrong with you. Let me ask, do you feel tired all the time? Especially when you're starting your homework. Then do you sit and wonder, why am I so tired all the time? What's wrong with me? Why am I so tired all the time? This worrying provokes anxiety and depression, and it does not serve you. We need to do hard things. It strengthens our vitality and sense of purpose, which is why Glennon Doyle's podcast is called We Can Do Hard Things. Engaging in small challenges builds confidence and connects you with your agency and authority. You feel stronger, trust yourself more, and are more relaxed. In this section of the book, I explain the phenomenon behind why this is happening. Because once it's exposed, it is no longer implicit and infecting you without your approval. I'm going to go over that again in this episode because if reading this book was the first time that you've heard it, it'll really help to hear it again. The brain has two functions. The first is to survive and thrive, and the second is to conserve calories. Whenever it is faced with a task, the brain, quick as lightning, makes this decision. Do I need to do this to survive and thrive or not? If the brain determines that you don't need it to survive or thrive, it sets off neurotransmitters that give you tension in your body and a feeling of needing to resist. The purpose of this biological resistance is to protect you from expending precious calories to do the task if you don't have to. Remember, the brain evolved for many millennia in hunter-gatherer times, and the grocery store has only been around for less than 100 years. Calories needed to be conserved for survival because no one was guaranteed where or when their next meal was coming from. It doesn't just try to conserve calories when you're hungry, it does it in case you're hungry. I realize that there are many, many families around this country and around the globe that don't have enough to eat. But many of us don't need our brains to give us this resistance. I'm sharing this new understanding of resistance with you for many reasons. One is that if you feel resistance and hesitate, your mind thinks something is wrong and releases adrenaline. And you know what happens when it releases adrenaline. You're desperate to satisfy the anxiety and you do it by grabbing control. The next reason is that if you don't know why this is happening, you could make some negative identity conclusions about yourself, like thinking that you're different or lazy or problematic. What's worse is that these can have you isolate yourself, where you're alone with the negative thoughts, and those negative identities feed themselves and spiral worse and worse. Over time, this can establish into an extremely painful mental illness. Another reason why I'm telling you this is because this resistance makes you fight with people who have your best interest at heart. There are people who ask you to do tasks for your highest good. If your good is at the center, they are not oppressing you. But when you put up a good fight, you might be the one who's being mean. And also, it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort to fight, sometimes much more effort than the chore would have been. This means you are not lazy and you are not unmotivated. When you add this calorie counting resistance to developmentally appropriate rebellion and individuation, which is how you become your own person, you'll probably agree with me that you are far from lazy. You're actually highly motivated, but to resist. Listen, having to do something that you don't want to do makes you feel powerless, and you want to protest that powerlessness. Because humans are inherently resistors. We always protest any power over us. You can see this happening throughout history. And that is why oppressors have to do so many conniving and horrible things to keep people oppressed, because people will always rise up. On the other side, when you see things as your choice and you desire the outcome, even if that outcome is way down the line, you will feel empowered instead of disempowered, and that is going to make all of the difference. Safety is relative anyway, but in our culture, we have equated it with comfort. That is both the cause and the consequences of increased anxiety in the last 20 years. It is a problem. Comfort and ease is overrated. Demanding it comes out of a feeling of powerlessness that is not even true. It causes you to be the oppressor without even meaning to. Sometimes trying to control and gaslight yourself, and sometimes trying to control and gaslight other people. For example, this attachment to comfort and ease is the cornerstone of white fragility, which continues to put a wrench in the wheels on our path to righting the wrongs of our history. Remember what I said before, trying to get power over yourself or power over other people is not sustainable. I called it pseudo-power. We have to keep grabbing it and we still never feel good. But what will help our individual and collective mental health is when people get comfortable being uncomfortable. There's actually a freedom and a relaxation knowing you don't have to hold on so tightly to comfort. You'll actually feel better letting it go. Discomfort is not dangerous. Tediousness is not dangerous. Chores are not dangerous. Homework is not dangerous. Danger is dangerous. There's a huge difference. All right, now what are we going to do about this? Let's summarize. When you are faced with a task that you don't want to do, the brain will release neurotransmitters to give you a feeling of resistance. Now that you know what is happening, and you also know from the last few sections of the book how our mammalian brain could override our reptilian brain, you can understand why I'm telling you that, again, your mammalian brain can override this resistance, and you just do it by deciding that you do want to do that thing. Once you consciously decide to do it, you will feel empowered, and that is going to keep the anxiety at bay. You're going to feel better because you won't feel so bad about yourself. You won't have as many conflicts, which, let's face it, suck. You'll feel productive and maybe even proud of yourself if it was hard. You'll build skills and confidence in your skills, and you'll get to enjoy the desired outcomes of doing whatever you did. This is a win-win-win-win-win situation. All right, I feel like that's enough for this episode, though the Italian in me can talk about this all day. Take some time to think about this. Share it with a friend so you could talk about it and think of some examples together to help you integrate. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Anxiety, I'm so done with you. With me, Dr. Jodi. In this episode, you learned why you feel resistance to doing things that you don't want to do and how anxiety hijacks that feeling and uses it against you. You also learned that you could override this and how doing so will make you feel so much better. I appreciate you all for subscribing and leaving me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. The next episode is Chapter 2, Lie Number 6. You can't trust anyone. Oh, if you have trust issues, you're going to love that one. Read or listen, and I'll meet you there.